Hey there guys, I'm Psychotic Ramboob, and you should play The Legend of Zelda, A Link Between Worlds. Before I talk about why you should play A Link Between Worlds, let me explore some of the history and weaker areas of the Zelda franchise. In 1998, Ocarina of Time released, making an extremely strong transition from 2D to 3D that not a lot of other franchises did so well at. I'm not the biggest fan of this game, but I'm still willing to admit that it's one of the best designed games of all time. Except for one aspect: Navi. Navi is a helper character who, in all honesty, is not that annoying, but the premise started something in the Zelda series that became increasingly annoying with each successive iteration. Fast forward to 2002, when Wind Waker's released. The game is beautiful with its cel-shaded art design, the characters are memorable, the overworld is enormous. One problem with the overworld, though, it's really empty. Until you take a closer look and realize that there's islands literally everywhere, Octoroks to kill for upgrades, treasure chests hidden at the bottom of the sea, you get the idea now. Now, take a look at Twilight Princess. Granted, I'm not a huge fan of this game either to begin with, but it generally boils down to one thing: a giant, empty overworld. There are also extended sections of the game, such as the Twilight bug collecting thingy, that just sort of felt overly tedious and unnecessary. There are a lot of great aspects about Twilight Princess, but they're overshadowed for me because of these shortcomings. Now look at Skyward Sword. The story is the best of any Zelda game I've ever played, and there's a lot of dynamic and memorable characters, but the game repeats all of the shortcomings of the other Zelda games, gave them steroids, stuck them in the gym for 14 hours a day, and then just let them be. Fi interrupts you every 2 seconds telling you exactly what to do. The overworld has nothing in it, like literally nothing. There are tons of boring and tedious quests you had to do in between each dungeon. The game was absurdly easy, starting you with 6 hearts instead of 3, and they added accurate motion controls. The controls are probably the worst aspect of this game. Hell, if you were playing with a Wii Motion Plus accessory, they didn't even work. But because of all these poor design choices in Skyward Sword, they chose to make a game that brought ice cream to children and faith to all the obnoxious atheists. A game that will forever be ingrained as a shining glimmer of hope in an otherwise doomed franchise. They brought us A Link Between Worlds! Now, what's so great about this game? I mean, it's just a remake of Link to the Past, right? No. What is wrong with you? You're so wrong. Go sit in your room and cry, little Jimmy. This game is totally not a remake of Link to the Past. Granted, it takes place in the same world as Link to the Past, but much like Super Metroid did with the original Metroid, it also did the same thing of changing a bunch of things and making them a whole lot better. Let's start with the controls. What's this? I don't have to shake a stick. I don't understand. The controls are amazingly fluid in this game, and unlike what I found in Link to the Past, you feel like you have a very defined sword arc. Your character moves at a pace which is appropriate with the size of the screen, and if you feel like speedrunning the living hell out of the game, you have the Pegasus boots that let you dash. And what's this? No annoying stamina meter for how far you can run?
By the gods.
Wait, what did I just say? What did I just say? Is that a stamina meter? Well, fear not, dear viewer, since I will show you why this is actually a fantastic thing. See, first of all, when you start at the game, a character named Ravio invades your house and just randomly sets up shop for no reason in particular, even though I told him to get out several thousand times. Now, first of all, he is a fantastic design element in this game. Not only does he serve as a helper character that doesn't actually follow you around for once, but he rents items to you. Basically, what this means is for a small fee, you can rent basically any item in the game from him. Why is this important? Because this allows you to do the dungeons in whatever order you want. Wait, so what does that mean? Non-linearity in a Zelda game for the first time since Link to the Past? You bet your sweet bumpkin! Also worth mentioning is that every time you die, you have to give back the items and rent them again, which gives you an incentive for not dying a lot. In addition, after a while you can buy the items and keep them after you die. Now, what does this have to do with the stamina meter? Well, you see, there are only two situations in which the stamina meter will actually go down. When you turn into a drawing, which I will go into later, and when you use an item you get from Ravio. Now, what this does is add a lot of strategy into every action you do. Sure, you have unlimited arrows and bombs, but you can't just keep spamming them or else you'll run out of stamina and be helpless. It gives a bit more of a dire feeling to the game, as you feel like you have to keep that stamina bar as full as possible, so you think about everything you do before you do it. This is something that hasn't been seen in a Zelda game since the original, a game where you actually feel like you really need to conserve your bombs and arrows in case you need them later. Now let's talk about the transformation in this game. Now, something I never talked about before was in Twilight Princess you had the ability to transform into a wolf, which was super well done since you had to use it to solve puzzles and get heart pieces. A Link Between Worlds has something similar, where you turn into a drawing.
Also in this game, Link can become a drawing. Link can become a drawing. Become a drawing. Become a drawing.
Now at first, I thought this was so stupid. I mean, a drawing? Seriously? How could they possibly work that into the plot whatsoever? Well, they did, and they actually did a really good job of it. Basically, the villain in this game, Yuga, is running around kidnapping sages by transforming them into paintings so he can revive Ganon. When you finish the first dungeon in the game, Yuga is the boss, and after you beat him, he turns you into a drawing. However, earlier in the game, the bracelet Ravio gave you as rent glows, and you can turn into a drawing at will. This seems like a stupid design choice, right? Wrong. The great thing about the drawing transformation is that you can use it in ways you wouldn't normally use it. Now you have to look at every dungeon in an entirely different way, and now there are multiple ways to solve puzzles in each dungeon. Not to mention that there are harder puzzles scattered around the world that you actually feel like you've accomplished something when you complete, since some of them are actually pretty hard. The drawing also uses up stamina, so you have to think on your feet while you're using the transformation, or you'll pop out of the wall and have to start over. The overworld in this game is beautifully designed. Sure, it's mostly a cut and paste of Link to the Past with better graphics, but it's so much more than that. First, there are two worlds, Hyrule and Lowrule. The first time you go in between them, you see that Lowrule is essentially a corrupted version of Hyrule. The world is literally being torn apart at the seams, and there seems to be nothing anyone can do to fix it. The people of Lowrule are all very distant and generally tell you to leave them alone, adding to the atmosphere. Second, there are tons of secrets, collectibles, and mini-games in the overworld, from dodging cuckoos to Octorok Baseball. There are a total of 28 heart pieces to be found in this game, giving lots for you to do and find. In addition, there are also 100 Maiamais hidden around the overworld. Unlike previous games, you actually feel like you get something useful for collecting the Maiamais, as the mother will reward you for letting you upgrade an item of your choice, so long as you've bought it from Ravio as opposed to rented it. There are also hidden caves, which by the way are generally super easy to find, that have extra challenging puzzles you have to complete, generally for money. As I said before, you actually feel like you've accomplished something when you do these challenges, as some of them are actually pretty hard and require some thought. But this feeling of accomplishment is why this game is so great, because it actually rewards you for trying and exploring. Finally, some of the finer design choices in this game. First of all, this game is fantastic because you don't have a set path. It brings you back to what Zelda's really all about, exploration. For the first time ever, you have all the items at your fingertips from the get-go, well, after the first dungeon, and you can explore the world to your heart's content. Next, there is no annoying helper character. I mean, sure, Ravio will give you tips every so often, but there's no fee following you around, stopping you every 5 seconds, being like, Mega Man, you can walk by pushing the control stick, or something stupidly obvious like that. The game actually expects you to figure stuff out and doesn't insult your intelligence. There is, however, an item that will give you hints in certain spots if you really need them, but I never found myself using the hints because it's just more fun to figure stuff out by myself. There also aren't really any boring or tedious side quests between dungeons that you have to do, at least not from what I noticed. I mean, sure, to get to some dungeons you had to go through an area that sometimes was difficult, but I never found it to be boring. Finally, I'm not really going to say anything about the story other than the fact that it's really, really great, and I found myself enjoying it more than most Zelda games. I'll leave that for you to figure out on your own, because you should play The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. Thanks for watching.